Dave and Darren's Top 5 Things podcast. A look back, a review, a compendium of what happened on our morning show this morning. My name is Dave. His name is Darren. Hello, Darren.
I should let everyone know that the podcast is brought to you by Nature's Treatment of Illinois, Tech Drive in Milan and West Main Street in Galesburg.
Hello there.
Nature's Treatment offers a wide selection of products for recreational use, including flower, vapes, and edibles. The recreational waiting lists are available. Reserve your time at the website. That's ntillinois.com.
And you can hear more, I guess, on the NTI podcast that's available at planet939.com. We got some new information on that podcast.
Take a look at that as well.
Yeah, all right. Let's get into this one now.
Number one.
Number one.
Big news yesterday, billionaire Richard Branson.
Flew a little bit higher than a plane. I don't get it.
I don't understand how we're calling this guy an astronaut.
Somehow he went to space, but was gone for only like an hour.
He
What?
hurtled into space aboard his own winged rocket ship yesterday, bringing astrotourism a step closer to reality. Now, is that really what happened? Because
It looked to me like he was in a plane, and then a plane separated from a plane.
yes,
They didn't.
how is that space?
I don't see how you're back within 90 minutes.
They were 53 and a half miles over the New Mexico desert. And they were able to experience 3 to 4 minutes of weightlessness, and they were able to witness the curvature of the Earth. They then glided back home for a runway landing.
In time for lunch.
But that's not space. Is that space? The brief up and down flight. They were only in space for like 15 minutes, which is about as long as Alan Shepard was in space in 1961. It was a plug, of course, for Virgin Atlantic, which wants to get people to pay to go on rides like this. I don't know. Branson became the first person to blast off in his own spaceship, beating Jeff Bezos, which is what this is all about. Bezos, the richest person on the planet, who will be going into outer space a week from tomorrow.
We don't need any space helmets.
He's also the second septuagenarian to go into space, because he's 71, and John Glenn went up on the space shuttle in 1998 when he was 77.
And actually went to space.
Here's the thing about John Glenn, though. I'll call him an astronaut, because he went to actual space twice. 500 people were watching, including Branson's family. And you have to assume there were a couple people in the family who were thinking, if this doesn't go well, it's not a bad day for me. Get some of that Branson
I don't know how
money.
you can call it going to space when you don't even have to bring a snack.
Yeah, you're not up there eating ice cream made for astronauts? What the hell are you doing?
No Tang.
The craft Unity carried it aloft underneath a twin fuselage aircraft. Then once they got about 8.5 miles up, Unity detached from the mothership and fired its engine, reaching more than Mach 3, or 3 times the speed of sound. I've done that. That's no big deal. You've done that.
Natch.
Spectators cheered, jumped into the air, and embraced as the rocket plane touched down on Earth. Who's excited for this dummy to go into almost space?
Jumped into the air? You mean jumped? What? Who is describing it as jumping into the air?
I'm reading the Associated Press account.
The
here.
Associated Press
Yes.
is calling jumping into the air.
Jumping into the air. Well, they didn't jump into a pool.
Well, that's true.
They didn't jump into a ball pit.
That would have been something.
And now to celebrate Richard Branson's brave flight into almost
Everyone
space,
jump
I'm going
into
to
the
jump into
ball
this
pit.
ball pit. Yay! I'm going to the bottom. Watch me, mommy.
I would think that ball pits are probably the filthiest thing you can jump into.
You'd be surprised because they use kind of like that microband technology.
Do they?
Yeah.
Because I would think it's worth. You might as well jump into a toilet.
Well, Branson pumped his fists as he stepped out onto the runway and ran towards his family, bear hugging his wife and children and scooping up his grandchildren in his arms.
You mean just hugging? Who's writing this? Jumping into the air, bear hugging.
Well, you like to be descriptive. Mike Moses is a top executive at Virgin Galactic. He says, apart from some problems with the transmission of video images from inside the cabin, the flight was perfect. And the ship looked pristine.
Back in the day, I remember that the astronauts had to be like
Quarantined for
a period of time.
Yeah,
because they had been in space.
Yeah, no. Why did we do that? Did we think that maybe there was like space bugs or something?
Some contamination on the moon.
Do they still do that? They still do that for actual astronauts.
Uh-huh.
Because, you didn't want to bring moon bugs back with you from the Apollo
something
mission.
up while you were gone, but being that you were only gone for,
Now you have to quarantine.
Hour and a half.
You have to quarantine before you go onto the space station, and that makes sense because they don't want you bringing a cold up to the space station.
No,
because it'll spread like that. So you quarantine before you go into space, but that's actual outer space. And then the Apollo 11, 12, 13, and 14, they had to stay in what they called the MQF. That's the Mobile Quarantine Facility. Because they didn't know what exactly was up there on the moon. And if you brought back moon sickness, you could contaminate the Earth. Imagine that. Well, we don't want them coming back with the moon sickness.
this was more of an inner space.
Astronauts, when they get back now, they don't have to undergo the quarantine like they did back in the Apollo days, but they do have something called the L10. That's 10 days before they launch to make sure that you're not sick before they launch you, and they give you a 10-day quarantine. And then they want to do a bunch of tests on you when you get back.
Sure.
To see how space changed you.
See if you're taller.
No reason to do any tests on this knucklehead. He was in space. I mean, we've been talking about him in space longer than he was in space.
Number two.
Dear Prudence, a song from the White Album, but also an advice column that appears in the online magazine Slate. It's also syndicated to over 200 newspapers.
It's a nice gig.
Yeah, for a while, I think that the person behind it was the daughter of Ann Landers. A bunch of different people have taken over the reins of...
David Landers.
No, not Squiggy. Margot Howard took over for a time. Because it
runs in the family.
There's a new Dear Prudence.
That's all those people do is give people advice.
Janae Desmond Harris is the new Dear Prudence for Slate. I mentioned that because just starting as the new Prudence there for Slate, and this one's a humdinger. I love sharing these. These are people who are having problems with their life and decide to reach out to advice columnists. We do this a lot on the show where people will go to Reddit and ask for advice from strangers. An advice columnist probably makes a little bit more sense because these are people that put a little bit more thought into the replies than just some monster on Reddit. Although you're taking a chance that you're never going to get an answer to your question, right? You have a burning problem and you write to the newspaper. Who knows if they'll even select your letter, right? Here is the Dear Prudence from yesterday.
And these people are trained to give advice.
Mm-hmm. Dear Prudence, I have a boyfriend of 2 years with a weird hobby. He has a mannequin that he's kept since college named Barbara. I discovered her existence when we'd been seeing each other for over a year.
It's Mrs. Beasley.
He spends a significant amount of money for her maintenance and talks to it like a real person. When he comes home from a trip, he kisses her and tells her he missed her. He sleeps next to her at night when I'm not there and basically treats her like a second girlfriend. I've asked him to get rid of it, and his response ranges from either ignoring what I've said to telling me he'll do it later or pleading with me to understand how important Barbara is to him. He definitely has some kind of emotional attachment to it. If it was a childhood blanket or even a teddy bear, I wouldn't care so much. But having a life-size, real-looking doll is just too much. We fought over it so much, he gets angry whenever I bring her up and says I'm being petty and jealous over a doll. Who's in the right here? Is it worth giving up an otherwise excellent relationship?
Boy, I think I would get in the car and drive as far away as you can and change the locks.
On your car?
Everything. If you've got everything. If you've got a lock on your bicycle, change it.
I love the perspective of everything is terrific in our relationship.
Except.
Other than the fact that I'm with someone who's clearly out of their mind. Everything's terrific. Except for, the fact that, and let's be honest here, honey, you're the second girlfriend. This isn't Barbara's not the second girlfriend.
No, she got there first. That's how that works.
Here's what Prudence says. You would think one of the advantages of having a mannequin for a girlfriend is that the money needed to preserve her looks is minuscule. But Barbara sounds pretty high maintenance. Barbara sounds pretty high maintenance. Ryan Gosling starred in a movie, Lars and the Real Girl, which I had no desire to see, about a guy like your boyfriend who eventually gets everyone to accept his sex doll as his girlfriend. But your boyfriend is not so devoted to Barbara. There he is, cruelly leaving her at home while he goes out on the town with you and locking her in the broom closet when you spend the night.
You don't know that.
I'm trying to imagine the moment a year into your relationship when you discovered he was cheating on you with a life-size doll. I'm wondering how you managed not to run screaming into the night when your boyfriend finally introduced you to his love. Your boyfriend points out how petty you sound fighting with him over his feelings for a department store mannequin, and he has a point. There is no limit to the human capacity for kinkiness, and he's committed to his fetish, but you sound nuttier than he is by throwing jealous fits over Barbara. It was unfair of him to keep his obsession hidden while you developed your relationship. That relationship may be otherwise excellent, but excellence seems like an odd concept when your boyfriend is sleeping with a mannequin when you're not sharing his bed. If you choose to stay, then you're the one who has to accept that your boyfriend will likely never change, and neither will Barbara. Yeah.
Get used to it.
Next
to it.
I just don't see how that's something you give a thought to. Like, oh, well, this is normal. I'll write to Prudence. She'll have my back. And then was the expectation Prudence was going to write a letter saying, no, you're right, he needs to get rid of the mannequin, and you were going to show him, like clip out the article and show him. See, Prudence thinks it's weird that you have a mannequin girlfriend. I think you're right. Change all the locks.
Even locks that aren't yours.
Number 3. Three.
An unopened copy of the Nintendo game The Legend of Zelda sold at auction on Friday for $870,000.
Who is this Zelda you speak of?
Yeah, I don't know. I know the character you play is a guy named Link. Is Zelda like who you're trying to rescue? It's been a while since I've played.
But you have played it.
Oh yeah, no, it's like one of the biggest selling video games of all time.
Really?
There's a whole series of Zelda movies. My kid is playing one now called Breath of the Wind or something. Yeah, Zelda's like I think second only to Mario in terms of like Nintendo.
How did I not know this?
Well, you're not much of a video game player. I don't want you beating yourself up.
But I'm gonna.
So this is a record on Friday for an unopened copy of The Legend of Zelda. Went for $870,000, and they thought at the time, well, that's a record that's going to be hard to break. And then yesterday, an unopened copy of the Nintendo game Super Mario 64 sold for $1.56 million.
Now these games are no longer available?
Well, you're not available unopened.
So
You and I could walk into Video Games Etc. right now,
Yeah.
and get a Nintendo Super Mario 64. I bet for a couple of bucks.
Okay. But they're not making any new ones?
No, these games were made in 1996. Heritage Auctions in Dallas saying that yesterday they sold an unopened copy of Super Mario 64, a game everybody had, but everybody opened it. If you would have just not opened it and put it in a shelf, it'd be worth $1.5 million right now.
You need to buy 2 copies of everything.
You do. Super Mario 64 was the best-selling game on the Nintendo 64. It was the first to feature Mario in 3D. But here's the thing. They sold a ton of them.
Yeah.
And one person didn't open it up, and now it's worth $1.56 million?
Put it up there on the shelf and left it alone.
Right? I wonder if it's a case of, and maybe this is something that is possible, that maybe it was Christmas and you got 2 copies of the same game and you just never got around to returning it.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a box somewhere in your parents' house where you have a copy of Super Mario 64.
Both grandmas and grandpas gave you the same game.
It's possible, right?
Sure it
Very
is.
popular. 1.56
No, you'd be an idiot. Boy, you'd be kicking yourself now if you had got 2 copies and you opened both of them.
From 1995 to 2002, it was the best-selling game in the United States. They sold 6 million copies of it, Darren, and one person never got around to opening it up?
Mm-hmm.
I find that hard to believe.
I play the long game.
Right? So, 870,000 for an unopened Legend of Zelda, and a couple days later, 1.56 million. This thing is rated 9.8 on a scale of 10. Why
not a 10?
Well, there must be some sort of minor imperfection in the packaging, I guess. This is something that where you go and you get it graded. It's an A++ 9.8. The unopened Legend of Zelda game from 1987 sold for $870,000.
You don't tell me it's a 9.8. I've been taking care of this thing forever.
In April, they sold an unopened copy of Super Mario Brothers that was bought in 1986 and forgotten about in a desk drawer for $660,000. If you have somewhere in your house an unopened copy of a Nintendo game, take really good care of it because that's just...
Your life depends on it.
Good Lord. $600,000? Now I'm furious that I opened those games up and played with them.
That's kind of the idea.
I could have made $2 million if I
could
just...
be.
The game... Listen, Super Mario 64 was fun. It wasn't...
I could be done.
Wasn't $2 million good.
It wasn't generational wealth. Oh, fun.
This one is special for a couple of reasons, they say. For one, somebody resisted the urge to rip the plastic cover off, right? Mm-hmm. It's also rated on the Wata scale, which goes to a maximum of 10, as in 9.8. That is a system used to rank the condition of super rare video games. The plastic seal on it gets an A++, which is the highest possible rating. They say the condition of it is breathtaking.
That's what I would call it.
And it is less... There are only 5 copies of Super Mario 64 in existence to be in almost perfect condition like this.
You just had to wait them out. That's all you had to do.
Oh, my gosh.
Let everybody play with their 6 million copies, and I'll just be sitting here.
Playing the long game. We don't know who bought it. We don't know who's got $2 million to shell out for a game they'll never play. The opening bid... Oh my gosh. That's ridiculous. Again, the record got shattered, established on Friday and shattered yesterday. And the previous record was set in April. So we've gone from a Super Mario Brothers in April going for $660,000 to this one now going for almost $2 million. The world of collecting is on fire, and not just for rare video games. Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and sports trading cards selling for obscene amounts of money. It's gotten so bad that, like, you can't get Pokemon or Magic the Gathering cards at Target because they stopped selling it because people were getting into fights. And like,
See, I should have bought
gun
these
battles.
games. I should have bought these games because I wouldn't have had any desire to play them.
Yeah, you would have.
That would have been easy.
You would have been the perfect.
Could have been on
person.
Easy Street.
I'm going to buy this game. I'm going to put it in a box and not think about it for 30 years, and then I'm done working.
Four.
This guy in Michigan, Norton Shores, Michigan, is doing a little work in his house, and he goes to demolish the back stairs of his home. And underneath the back stairs, he makes a pretty startling discovery. 160 bowling balls stashed back there.
What the hell is going on around here?
Well, that's what he asked. David Olson says he found one ball buried in the sand behind cinder blocks, and then he just kept finding more and more bowling balls. He says, I was actually a little happy about it, because it's a little easier to roll bowling balls out of the way than to move sand and figure out where to put all of that. He thinks there might even be more bowling balls buried under his home. He contacted the maker of the balls, Brunswick. Now, they had a plant in the area back in the day.
What do you guys know about this?
The bowling balls were all made in the 1950s. And what they would do is they would take scrapped bowling balls home and they would use it as an alternative to gravel or sand.
Okay.
This is near Muskegon, Michigan. They shut that plant down in 2006. Again, these are all balls from the 50s. They're not in good shape. They don't have any finger holes. They're not polished. You can't bowl with them. He says he will donate some of the bowling balls to the Muskegon Heritage Museum. And the rest he plans on using for landscaping or to make sculptures. Bowling ball sculptures. The Muskegon Heritage Museum sounds like a fascinating place to go. You guys want to see some bowling balls a guy found under his house? Come to the Muskegon Heritage Museum.
It's a museum now.
We're so grateful for this donation. Now there's a reason to come to the place. Muskegon Heritage Museum. They're closed. They won't open again until Wednesday at 11 a.m. The Muskegon Heritage Museum, located in downtown Muskegon, dedicated to preserving the economic, industrial, and social history of the greater Muskegon area. Our collection includes informational exhibits, artifacts, and photos pertaining to Muskegon's industries, products, and businesses. We have a working steam engine with a line shaft that runs 11 tools.
Don't touch it.
So that was the reason to go. Go check out the working steam engine. Now they also have some bowling balls that a guy found under his house. Oh,
Go Muskegon.
Know this, only 10% of our collection is on display at any time. So it's important to keep coming back to see all the new exciting sights here at the Muskegon
Our
Heritage.
founding fathers would be so proud.
Did Pete Weber use a Brunswick ball? Let's find out.
Exactly.
Strike to claim it. A strike to claim it. And he got it!
That is why I did it! That's number 5! Are you kidding me? That's right! Who do you think you are? I am!
That's right.
Get it right!
I love that
I love that we use that whenever any mention of bowling is going on.
Yeah.
That's why you did the story.
You know me so well.
You weren't that
You think-
interested in the story.
Do you think, in your heart of hearts, I give a damn about some dummy finding bowling
I'll
balls
tell
under
you what,
his
you
house?
do give a damn. Give us that Pete Weber again.
It's-
because I
it's
tell you
so
what,
great. It's so
who
great.
do you think you are?
It's so great because these people are cheering him on and he's just screaming at them.
Strike to claim it. A strike to claim it. And he
Look how angry he is at these people.
That is why I did it! That's number 5! Are you kidding me? That's right! Who do you think you are? I am!
He's mad.
Get it right!
I gotta go bowling. Talk about an ambassador.
This might be the greatest moment in the history of sport.
Right up there with Lenny Randall and his drag bunt
Right?
for revenge.
It's just the best. Yeah, I'm guilty. I don't really care about somebody finding 160 bowling balls under his house.
But if it gets me to this,
As I'm scanning around looking for things to bring up on the show, I'm
did
like,
someone say something about bowling
bowling?
balls?
That'll give me an excuse to play the Pete Weber drop again. Yeah!
Who do you think you are? I am.
I know obviously you're the guy on the show who loves animals. You've got your dogs that are your world, and it wasn't always the case. When I first met you all those years ago, you were someone who was not crazy about pets. Did you have any pets growing up as a kid?
Yeah, we had pets.
Dogs, cats,
Yeah, both.
fish,
Fish.
goldfish?
Yeah, goldfish.
And it's kind of a rite of passage. You get a goldfish, and then it dies, and then you have a little ceremony either at the toilet bowl. And
I remember that we cut out the little blurb from when Jaws 2 came out. Cut that out and put that on the fish tank.
so it was like a poster up in its room.
No, it was just in the corner of the tank where it said just when you thought it was safe to get back in the water.
That's pretty boss. One of the things that I think one of the reasons goldfish are such popular pets is they're pretty durable, And when they do die, it gives you an opportunity to have a conversation about, things don't last forever, right? I mean, part of growing up is when your goldfish dies. I had 2 goldfish when I was a very, very young kid, and got them at like a parish festival. One of those deals where you throw a ping pong ball, and if it lands in a fish tank, then you got to take the fish home.
Had a couple hamsters too.
Did you? Mm-hmm. What were their names?
Mushroom and Chicklet.
Huh. Were they like in the same cage together?
Yeah, I think the one kind of wasn't nice to the other one.
Oh, they were mean. Are you not supposed to put hamsters together?
I don't know. Are they supposed to have their own cage?
I don't know anything about hamsters. I mean, if you get some sort of hamster blood sport going on, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, you don't need to get busted for hamster fighting.
I would imagine that the hamsters would be more into,
Making more hamsters?
Yeah. I don't know why in
Make
my
love,
head.
not war.
Yeah, hamsters to me sound like they're just little horny rats, right? I mean, wouldn't they go after it?
You don't see them in the wild a lot.
Or ever, or at all. Like it never happens.
You never come upon like a pack of hamsters.
No.
They
must
You
exist.
might be out looking for mushrooms or something, morels.
They must exist in the wild somewhere, right?
They gotta.
But not in North America.
Not typically.
No, if you see a hamster when you're out taking a walk, that means somebody let their hamster out. Either the hamster got away, or
Not a lot of
someone
wild
has,
hamsters.
No, someone has decided that they can't make the commitment to hamster ownership anymore. And the same is true for goldfish. To the point now where all across this country, cities are warning people, you gotta stop putting your goldfish in ponds and lakes. Up in Burnsville, Minnesota on Friday, they put out a release saying, please do not
For
release
the love of God.
your pet goldfish into ponds and lakes. They grow bigger than you think
Yeah.
and contribute to poor water quality by mucking up the bottom sediments and uprooting plants. And they show pictures of goldfish up there in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
These things are the size of footballs.
Oh, no, look at that.
I know, right?
Look at his little face.
Massive. Yeah, the face is little, but the body is
Look at that.
ginormous.
It is the size of a football.
Yes.
Bigger.
Yeah, these things are massive. You should never release goldfish into the wild. You might get to a point where you got goldfish and you think, okay, I don't know that we're goldfish people. We'll take them down to the Mississippi River. Because you don't want to just, you don't want to kill your goldfish.
It's not
That's
like
your
you got.
pet.
It's not like you got a little goldfish guillotine or anything.
Right. Guillotine. I don't know that we need to make a spectacle of this.
Well,
Let them eat flakes. We're not doing some sort of goldfish Marie Antoinette here. These things grow to massive size. You know, when you're in a tank, when you're in a fish tank,
you're restricted.
You're just eating flakes. And I think too, you only grow as big as the space that you're in if you're a goldfish.
That would make sense.
And the problem is when you put a goldfish out in the river or a lake or a pond, first off,
Pond be good for you.
They don't have any natural predators.
Huh.
Goldfish don't have any natural predators.
That I didn't know.
There's nothing that eats goldfish.
Huh.
So it interrupts the entire ecosystem. These goldfish will scarf down all of the local resources and they'll kill important species. Here's the thing. A goldfish at your house eats flakes. A goldfish in the river is eating the eggs of fish that belong there. A goldfish is a carp. And in the wild, they can grow up to 4 pounds. And carp are, according to the United States Geological Service, an invasive species. They eat flakes in home, but in the wild, they're carnivorous. And because they're carnivores and there's nothing that eats them to keep them in check, it gets nuts. Their feeding habits disrupt the sediment, make it difficult for other fish to eat, so the other fish end up dying. And they bring all kinds of new diseases to populations that don't need to be getting sick from goldfish stuff. If you flush a goldfish down the toilet, don't do it because it ends up in a body of water. It's just like Finding Nemo taught us. All drains go into the water. If you have a pet goldfish and you've had enough, they say either find a new owner or take them to a pet store. Those are your options.
You might be able to make a little money off the whole transaction.
I don't think they'll take money for a goldfish. I think if your conscience doesn't want you to, I could see that. Because if you put it in a pond, you're thinking, okay, well now it'll live out the rest of its life and probably have a lot more fun than it was having in my tank. But what you're doing is potentially damaging to...
Tanks for nothing.
Exactly.
Is it all over, Rock?
I guess so.
I didn't think it'd be like this.
That's it for Dave and Darren's Top 5 Things. Thanks for downloading, subscribing, and listening to it. You got all of that done. Darren, we also should thank Nature's Treatment of Illinois.
Right. Their goal is to fully understand their clients' needs physically, mentally, and emotionally because they know it's not easy to live with a chronic illness. Their experienced wellness consultants will sit down with you and discuss your options, figure out what's going to work best to make you feel more comfortable. Frequently asked questions are answered at the website ntillinois.com.
Until we get a chance to do it for you again, hang loose, kooks.
And you stay classy and safe, Quad Cities.
Come on, Quad Cities, represent. This is for the Quad Cities record spot. Davenport, yeah, we keeping it locked. Rock Island, come on, and it just don't stop. East Moline, yeah, they keeping it hot.
Hey, Brian, want to get the rock out of here?
Rock yeah.